Tom Downey here for Chat Sports, and on today's show, we're breaking down the latest Mel Kiper big board before the college football playoff gets underway. 25 players in total. Let's break them down. Number 1 is Dante Moore, the Oregon quarterback. No change here on the most recent Mel big board, which I don't think we actually did a video on, so do make note of that. Mel has been high on Dante the entire time, and I do think, and my mind has kind of flipped in the past like a month or so, I do think there is a good chance that Dante Moore ends up going pro. I wasn't as convinced of that in like October, but he's continued to do a pretty solid job. Oregon's been linked to Dylan Raiola in the transfer portal. Ty Simpson has fallen off. It feels like there is a very likely outcome in which Dante Moore is a top 2, top 3 pick. Even with the money from Oregon in the NIL, it's really hard to turn that down. So I would not be surprised if Dante Moore turns pro and is a very early draft pick. Number 2 is Fernando Mendoza. No change here again for Mel, although he is the Heisman Trophy winner, and I think maybe he doesn't have the same, I'd say high upside, but like I think it's also just an age thing. I think Mendoza has very good size in a way that like Dante Moore doesn't necessarily have the listed size. There's a bit of a gap there. Not that Moore's small. This is not a Kyler Murray player. But Mendoza has done a lot of good stuff for Indiana this year. Obviously won the Heisman Trophy. Has us discussing the Hoosiers later than we ever have in college football history. I think he is worthy of being that top pick. And I think this is kind of like a Jared Goff player comparison here. I won't do Dante Moore or Marcus Mariota. That's just me. Pick a quarterback for me. D for Dante Moore. F for Fernando Mendoza. If you had the top pick in the NFL draft, who would it be? D or F? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Number 3, Jeremiyah Love. Again, no changes at all in the top 4 for Mel Kiper, by the way. Mel comped Love to Reggie Bush, which might scare some people. I think he's actually, not durable isn't the right term, but I did, because he actually got hurt a little bit down the stretch there. I think he's a bit more of like a modern day version of Reggie Bush, where he is slightly bigger. I think about 10 extra pounds on the listed size, which I think does matter. He showed some more pass catching stuff there. You can make an argument he is the best pure player, regardless of position in this year's class. Number 4 is Arvell Reese, who has slowed down a little bit as of late. Very curious if he gets it back going again in the college football playoff, but the sack production has very much cooled off. A change at number 5, Francis Mauigoa, the offensive tackle out of Miami. Some will think he ends up being a guard in the NFL. I would give him a chance at right tackle first and foremost because there's not enough good tackles as it is. And in a class that's kind of light on tackles, I think he'll end up going pretty early. Number 6 is David Bailey, a big jump here for the Texas Tech edge rusher. I know that the Big 12 doesn't have the best offensive tackles outside of the Utah guys in particular. Bailey was dominant this year. Cannot wait to watch him in the CFP. Jordyn Tyson slides down 2 spots. Hamstring injury was an issue this year. Limited his production. He's been really good, though, when healthy. The problem is the health. I think that the eval for Jordyn Tyson is pretty easy. He's just a great wide receiver. How much you trust the medical is the main question mark. Who do you think is the best player in the 2026 NFL Draft? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Number 8, Kenyon Sadiq, up 2 spots. The Oregon tight end, 490 yards. Doesn't seem like a lot, but college tight ends, outside of the very few guys, don't get utilized in that way. This class in general, by the way, tight end at 8, a running back at super high. The top-end talent isn't at the normal spots. And it's just not as good as some of the previous years. I don't think Sadiq is a better player than Brock Bowers, but he might squeak in the top 10 still. Carnell Tate, number 9. Mill actually dropped him 3 spots on this one. Missed a little bit of time. Back, healthy. Has made some incredible body control plays this year. Play enough in the CFP, he'll have a 1,000-yard campaign. And he is the next Ohio State first-round pick. History tells us those guys end up being pretty good. Makai Lemon, who's a bit undersized compared to Carnell Tate. He's got, I think, 3 or 4 inches shorter than Carnell Tate is. But he gets open. He's productive. He definitely benefited from the USC offense. But all he does is make plays as a receiver. Now, look, Mel doesn't like safeties. And that is the only reason Caleb Downs is number 11. He has made that point many a time before. He just doesn't like safeties going early. He just doesn't find it valuable. I think there are some arguments in favor of that. This is a freshman starter at Alabama and has been a dominant player for the Ohio State Buckeyes. They even put him on returns sometimes. It's Josh Downs' brother. Indy won't get him, obviously. I think this is, ignoring the positional value stuff, I would argue Caleb Downs is at least a top 2 or top 3 player in this year's class. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. It is the holiday season, the best time of the year for sports. Bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes, it's all happening at once. And while you and I are out here making decisions every day, what gifts to buy, what to eat, which game to watch, which games to watch, there's one place where it feels good to be right, and that is Prize Picks. How on Prize Picks, how you play is up to you. This is a power play right here. Got to get all 3 right to win. You can choose the flex play. You get paid even if one of those picks misses. The power play has the bigger payout, of course, in the end. Caleb Williams, Colston Loveland, more than passing yards and touchdowns, respectively. Jordyn Love, less than 238.5 passing yards in that matchup. I love how straightforward Prize Picks is. There's not a lot of extra math and calculation. They just make it easy with the payout multipliers. 3x or even the big 2000x. Prize Picks makes it easy. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Number 12, Sonny Styles, who you could argue has outplayed Arvell Reese as of late, wasn't ranked on Mel's most recent big board. Skyrockets all the way up to 12. You know, sometimes Mel is behind on somebody or he gets told, hey, you need to have him on here higher because he talks to smart people. He has been very productive, former safety, kind of more, I think, a weak side linebacker, but done some Mike stuff for Ohio State, too. I think he's an awesome player who could easily go top 15. Jermod McCoy would have been an early pick, you know, had he not gotten hurt. And would have been maybe in the top 5 conversation based on how good he was in the previous season before he missed all of this year. Oregon State, Tennessee transfer. The ACL medical was a big question mark, but the talent is undeniable. Spencer Fano stays at 14 on Mel's big board. Has played both left tackle and right tackle, which I think will benefit him in the NFL. Arm length, some questions there because all the tackles have a question mark, but I think for a likely round 1 pick, someone's going to take him pretty early. Kayden McDonald wasn't ranked last time, now is on Mel's big board. If you want to run stopper up front, this is your guy. Listed at 6'3", just over 320 pounds. Has shown a little bit of flashes as a pass rusher, but this is a first-year starter and won the Big Ten Defensive Lineman of the Year. Very impressive. Keldric Faulk's going to kind of be some of the Michael Williams conversation all over again, where he's big, or even maybe Tyree Wilson, knock on wood. He's big, he's long, he's athletic. He hasn't produced. I think some of that was the Auburn defense, much like it was the conversation for Michael Williams. There's a lot of boom or bust here, though. Ioane out of Penn State, the guard, no change in his ranking. If you're kind of the tackles, it's tackles, not inside conversions. This feels like the first interior offensive lineman drafted. Peter Woods has fallen over the course of the season, was as high as top 5 on most people's big boards, but just hasn't been as productive as it would have liked. I will make note, in the ESPN Insider article, Mel's talking about him having to finish the second half of the year strong. It's over for Clemson. They didn't update the description there. Clemson put him some on the edge. Don't do that. Keep him at 3 technique, where I think he can be a better pro than he was a college production player this past season. Give me a round 1 sleeper. A game that isn't super common on a bunch of these big boards and mock drafts. Have some fun. Drop that name or names in the comments section. Number 19, Rueben Bain, 6'3", 275. Some might view him as a 3 technique. I would still play him at edge and maybe reduce him inside sometimes. Again, with some concerns of arm length. Very common trend this year. Very productive, though, for the Hurricanes. He's had a lot of attention paid to him, especially after he destroyed Notre Dame to begin the season. Another run stopper, Amari Washington, about that 6'3", 330. Does have only the 1.5 sack. It was a really good sack against Indiana, though, which kind of helped keep that game alive a little bit. Big boy on the middle. Again, a lot of interesting fits here, but I think Washington in that kind of maybe the 30s for me is a better fit. The other Miami edge rusher, Akeem Mesidor, who does have 7 sacks this year. West Virginia transfer, had been really inconsistent, finally broke out. He does turn 25 as a rookie. I think 21 is a little bit rich. I could definitely see him going day 2. That would not be a shock to me. I think there are some other edges that I'm like, I'd rather have them. Not to slight Mesidor, who went from maybe would get drafted to definitely going to get drafted. Probably top 100 would be my guess. Is December. Things change. Going to see him against A&M as well. Zachariah Branch back in Mel's top 25. He's had him in and out. Undersized, but productive and was better this year for Georgia than he was for USC. Also offers some return ability. I am a huge fan of Mansour Delane. The production simply speaks for itself against top-end talent almost every single week. He has broken up 11 passes and allowed 13 catches. You don't see that really in college football at that level, even any level, frankly. The arm length, the size, the speed are some question marks, but the version we got this year for Delane at LSU was the better version of the one I saw at Virginia Tech, who I also liked quite a bit. Denzel Boston, who can do some big slot stuff for you, 6'4", 209, 13.5 yards per catch, pretty solid hands. I would not be surprised if, given how many teams in that mid to late round 1 range are in the receiver market, I would expect Boston to go there. Kelly Jones out of Mississippi State. Dane is one of the only ones, Mel is one of the only ones I've seen hyping up Kelly Jones. My bad, got my draft insiders mixed up there. Mel thinks he could run in the 4.4s. We'll see. He has the size teams love, listed at 6'4", 195. Had a really good year for Mississippi State. Is only a third-year sophomore, so he may or may not end up going pro. If you guys want more free NFL draft videos, you come to the right spot. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. Couple other notable prospects I do want to mention. Ty Simpson out of Alabama is the next best quarterback. And does he turn pro? Does he go back to school? Does he transfer? All of those doors are open. Casey Concepcion was the next rated receiver for Mel. Emmanuel Pregnone on the interior. Caleb Lomu, Caden Proctor, 2 tackles that could easily go round 1 if they go pro. TJ Parker has slid pretty significantly. That is worth mentioning. Cassius Howell is undersized arm length-wise, but all he does is win. So, who cares? CJ Allen, I think, is a top 30 guy at linebacker. He's highly instinctual. Avion Terrell, Brandon Cisse, heck, you could even throw in Colton Hood. There are some very intriguing, not top 10 corners, but top 30, top 40 corners for sure.